and welcome to Getting to the Top, the podcast where we talk to transformational leaders about their leadership journey and how we help to inspire others to follow in their footsteps, especially if you know that you have something special to offer. And when we talk about people who have something special to offer, I'm absolutely delighted to be talking today to Karen Yip Chuck. Karen is the General Manager, Commercial and Retail Banking in Republic Bank, Trinidad and Tobago. And she's been a banker for for more than 30 years, serving in a number of senior management and leadership positions. She currently serves on the boards of Republic Bank Grenada, Republic Bank St. Martin, Trini Trust Limited, London Street Project Company Limited, and the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce. She's a graduate of our very own UWI and the Heriot Watt University of Edinburgh, and is a certified internal auditor. And she's also an associate of the Chartered Institute of Banking. So she's an absolutely amazing character, but also somebody full of heart, which I quite love, because sometimes you see people in these positions and they feel so remote and so far off, and you can't see yourself following in their footsteps. But I find Karen to be incredibly relatable. And I think that helps people not just to connect to her or to connect to their leadership journey, but also to connect to the bank and the institution that she's a part of. So thank you so much and welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Racquel. It's my pleasure to be here. Looking at your own profile, I was quite impressed, and I thought that you should actually be the interviewee, because I said, wow, that's a progressive woman. So kudos to you on all that you're doing here with this program.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And listen, we are all inspiring each other, which is, that's a goal. That's what we need to do. We need to inspire each other to even greater heights. So I'm going to give you a chance. I know I've talked a lot about what you've been able to do, but I think your leadership is really transformational, and that's what we want to highlight. So tell us a little bit first about your current role, maybe what you most like about it, and then about the journey to this point in your career.
Okay, thanks, Racquel. So I am currently, as you said, the General Manager, Commercial and Retail Banking. So I am in charge of Republic Bank Limited's branch network, 40 branches across Trinidad and Tobago, as well as the credit card center. I've been in charge since 2019. It has been a really exciting time, and maybe the best time to be in this position, because in 2019 we faced demonetization of the $100 cut note that was sprung on us by the central bank in the first week in December, with a deadline of the end of December. And it was a chaotic time, and the branch network needed significant support through it all and planning. Another interesting thing is that between the commercial and retail branch network and credit card center, we are responsible for about 50% of the branch of the Republic Bank staff. We're responsible for 1,500 staff and about 44 managers. The credit card center is responsible for all the credit cards across the entire RFHL group. And what I can say is I am currently transitioning out of the General Manager, Commercial and Retail Banking position into the Vice President of Republic Bank Limited and the Group Vice President of Republic Financial Holdings Limited. That will become effective from November the 15th, 2022, and really look forward to that new role.
Very, very excited for you, and congratulations on that new role. So tell us about your career. How did you get started? I know that you've been in banking forever, but tell us about, how did you even get interested in banking? Why was that the thing you wanted to do?
Okay, so it's interesting. My mother actually works at Republic Bank at the Harris Promenade branch.
Wow.
At the Harris Promenade branch. We live in South.
Oh, okay. But she doesn't work there anymore.
No, she passed away 4 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
But therefore, when I was in primary school in St. Gabriel's and in St. Joseph's Convent after that, I became very familiar with Republic Bank and its culture through my mom, working there and going every day after school to meet her and to wait with her. So it was very interesting that, you got to know a lot of the personalities in the organization. As a child, just being aware of them, attending different bank functions. The bank has a sports club in Barataria, the only bank that has its own staff sports club in Barataria.
So do
And
you
back
know
in
I
those
grew
days-
up on the same road of that sports club? So I know that sports club really, really well because I grew up there.
Yes, and they're really great memories. As a child, they would have had Christmas parties. They would have had Santa arriving on a fire truck, different events so that the children of the staff are able to be treated and exposed to wonderful events. So really, from my childhood, I felt as if I had a link with Republic Bank. Didn't know that I would end up in the bank, but when I went off to UE and did a degree in economics, I would have to say that upon graduating, there was a close link between the Gordon Draper, I would say Business Institute, because he was the dean for the business faculty at the time, or social sciences. And there was an arrangement between UE and the business sector. And graduates were interviewed for jobs at Republic Bank, Central Bank. In those days, it was Racquel or McInerney Olston, I can't remember the name, and Neil and Massey. And being given the opportunity to be interviewed at all those major organizations back in 1990, my heart was really for Republic Bank. I wanted to join Republic Bank. It really was then seen as one of the best employers at the time. And I was fortunate that I got through and joined the bank on October the 1st as a graduate trainee. That was October 1st, 1990. And back in those days, Racquel, that was nearly 32 years ago, there weren't many graduates in the organization at the time. As a matter of fact, in order to do a university degree, back then, people only went to UE locally. There was no SPCS or other forms of tertiary education. There was no UTT or anything like that. So the bank had offered a graduate training program, and the year before me, in 1989, they would have taken on maybe about 7 graduates from the people who graduated before me. And in my year, they were looking for just one more graduate to fill the team. And a couple of us were interviewed, and I got the job.
But why do you think you got the job?
Well, I think I went in there and interviewed very positively. All that, you know, you brought your positive energy into the interview. I remember I was interviewed by Ronald Harford.
Oh, wow. Who went on to become the chairman of the bank?
Well, at the time, he was equivalent to like a general manager.
Okay.
So I was interviewed by 3 general managers.
Wow.
Mohammed was another legend in the organization. He's passed away now. And I believe the 3rd person might have been Victor Muti, another legend in the organization. So the stars probably shone upon me, and I was the one that got the opportunity and rounded off the group of 8. Back then, you had a very clear structure for the graduate training program. They gave you a plan for 5 years of which you would get exposed to banking, the operations side and the credit side, with a view to becoming appointed as a branch manager within a 5-year time. Of course, you had to meet certain aspects of the contract. One, you had to do the bankers exams, the UK bankers exams, within a 3-year time frame. You also had to achieve an above average performance rating every year consecutively. And I went in seriously to do just that. And I remember my first day in the organization. You know, you come out from university, this young university graduate, and you feel that you know so much. You feel that you have this great contribution to make because at university you got exposed to these great lecturers, Dr. Trevor Farrell back then in those days, Compton Bourne, Professor Theodore, I can't remember his full name, and all of these people, and you did all of these papers on the banking sector and so forth, and you felt you knew so much. So coming into the organization, I really wanted to be successful, and on my first day, I joined with a white seamstress made gold white suit with little gold buttons and my little white pumps, and came in all professional to do what you had to do, you know. And I think one of the differences, I was prepared to work really hard and do whatever was required of me, the best that I could do it. If it was, they gave me a stack of things to photocopy, it was because I wanted to photocopy it as efficiently, as effectively. I would go to the machine and learn how to just raise the cover and put everything, place it very quickly so that you could finish that task and move on to another task. So back then, we also had something called an induction program that you went to the Learning and Resource Center to get an idea of the organization,
Sure.
some of its products, and an opportunity to meet the managing director.
Nice.
And you mentioned it before, the managing director at the time was Mr. Dunbar McIntyre. And I had a one-on-one session with him in his office. And I remember going in, and after, well, Mr. McIntyre is amazing. He has the power of memory of everybody that he meets. So when he met me, he asked about my mom because he knew my mom was an employee of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that way of breaking the ice, it felt so comfortable. I said, Mr. McIntyre, one day I'm coming to sit in your chair. And I said that very early on. And from the very beginning, I was, focused, had a plan, wanted to do my best so that one day that could materialize. Maybe I was dreaming very big back then.
Well, that's fabulous because I think that's what we want to see, right? It's people sort of going after their dreams and living into their potential versus just sort of sitting back and allowing life to happen to them. And I appreciate that great things can happen when you sort of sit back and wait. But even greater things can happen when you pursue them. So it's really important to be open to doing that and to be willing. What gave you that confidence?
Well, again, I think just maybe having an understanding of the culture of the organization, there was that link. And I think that's important. I think organizations must maybe recognize that when they interact with their staff, it's not just their staff, it's everybody behind that staff that really has an affiliation with that organization and has a good understanding. And maybe the same way it impacted me, maybe it does impact a lot more children of staff and friends of staff and people who hear these stories and see the journeys of people in an organization. Republic Bank is maybe one of the few organizations now that you still have people who have worked only in the organization for their whole career. Just on Saturday, we celebrated somebody who worked for 42 years.
Wow.
In the organization. And I mean, maybe that is something that would become rare as we go ahead because the next generation will not stay in one organization. They will look for different challenges and so forth. But that just goes to say the strength of the organization was its stability, the fact that it showed that it cared about people. I mean, I stayed in the organization my whole career because it gave me opportunities, because it also saw that if it invested in me, maybe the personality that they saw and the work ethic, they knew that they would get their return on the investment.
Do you, in retrospect, that you had moved around a little bit and gotten some other experience, or?
Well, actually, I can say that I had to make a decision when I had joined the bank because we were sponsored to migrate to Canada. We had gotten our landed immigrant papers and everything for Canada. And the rest of I'm the last of 5 children. And I have a brother and a sister who had migrated to Canada and 2 other sisters that went to the States. And when I had looked around and I thought of the opportunities that were in Canada at the time and what I was being given at Republic Bank, I just felt it in me that this one was for me. Right. And I would probably keep assessing did I make the right decision or not. And it's 31 years after the fact, and I definitely made the right decision.
Okay.
And I guess, a lot of that, Racquel, is that the organization also gave me different exposure along the way. So when I said that I started off on this graduate training program for 5 years, the fact is after 2 years, an opportunity came in head office to work as an investment analyst with the likes of Subhash Ramkalawan and Richard Trotman. And they were like finance gurus that I got the opportunity to work with. And then there was a close proximity to Ronald Harford, who was their boss at the time. And that opened the world of doors in the sense of just interacting with him for something as simple as carrying a file over. It wasn't too long after that, in my 3rd year, I got the opportunity to work with him on a project. And then after my 5 years in the organization, I actually got the opportunity to work with him as his assistant.
Nice.
And that was doing an MBA in practice.
Yes.
Because back in those days, you only had about 6 general managers. Today we have like about 17.
Okay.
And in those days, we were only in Trinidad. Now we are throughout the region. So you just have to think back then, you didn't have many graduates, you didn't have many general managers, and you didn't have all of these specialist divisions. So that area that reports to him was in charge of the branch network, IT, premises, projects, you name it, whatever initiative, whatever dream you had to go after, if it had made sense to the organization, he was very supportive, and he is a visionary and had lots of ideas for the organization, and you got the opportunity to work for him and give, assistance and learn a lot from it.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about, you talk a lot about the culture of the organization, and I think culture is so important. Culture makes a really, really big difference in terms of people wanting to work for an organization, what an organization is able to accomplish, the longevity of an organization. All of that is, supported by its culture. So tell me a little bit about both the culture of the organization as you found it, the culture of the organization now, and a little bit about transitioning into your leadership style, and how are you having an opportunity to influence that culture of the organization?
Okay, I'll say that the culture of the organization back then was visionary and progressive. So in 1990, we were only in Trinidad. But I remember very early in that first year, there was a staff forum where all staff attended a session down in Chaguaramas. And the managing director stood in front of all the staff and told us that he had a vision for the organization, that in 10 years' time, we couldn't just be in Trinidad, that we would have, as a bank, to diversify and go to other countries, because he saw, I think back in those days, you probably had about 8 commercial banks, including, you had Workers Bank, NCB, and another one, which were like government banks. And he said that the economy was too small to support so many different banks, and you would see mergers and you would see acquisitions along the way, and that we would have to grow throughout the Caribbean. And I think that inspired staff a lot to want to be part of it. I wanted to be part of it. I could remember leaving that session and feeling so energized. And with all the different leadership that has happened over time, it has materialized, because after that, about 3 years after that, we went into Grenada. Then we went into Guyana. And in 1997, when I was working for Ronald Hartford, I got the opportunity to work with him on the acquisition of the National Bank of Industry and Commerce, which is now Republic Bank Guyana. So the government of Guyana was privatizing the bank, and we were able to make an offer and a pitch of what all the value that we could bring to Guyana, the synergies, the fact that we could export all our products and services and bring up their banking sector across there. And over the years after that, with that same transformational journey of the bank, we've moved into Suriname. We have a representative office in Cuba. We have one in Cayman. But as you know, in the last 3 years, we were able to buy out the Scotia in the Eastern Caribbean. So now we have Republic Bank throughout the whole of Eastern Caribbean, and Cayman National Bank, and Republic Bank Ghana. So with that wide spectrum of geographical representation in the region and internationally in Ghana, the organization has transformed significantly. And now we don't only speak about Republic Bank Limited, we speak about Republic Financial Holdings Limited at the group level. And I think for staff to see that journey and to want to be part of that journey, it has been a continued inspiration. If you want to do more than just what is the job before you, I think that is definitely one of the things, one of the messages for people out there. Do more than the job that is just before you. Do more than just the immediate 8 to 4. And I guess it's a perspective. It's how people see it. Some people could just have a mindset and say, this is my job. This is all I'm going to do. And somebody else would come along and say, this is my job. I'm going to do it as best as I can, but let me see how I could help in other areas. Let me volunteer in other areas, because anything that I get exposed to and I learn grows you out as an individual. You get a wider understanding of the group. And
it presents new opportunities.
It presents new opportunities. You work with different people. You just understand how the whole bank comes together, and maybe even how the group comes together. So for me, over the 31 years, I started off by talking about, the graduate trainee and the branch banking side of it, and then working in finance, in this investments, working with Ronald Harford, which was strategic. And then after that, because of the kind of change or transformational projects that I was able to do working with him, the bank at the time was looking to set up or revive something called organizations and methods, which is like a transformation department about bringing change to the organization, how to look for efficiencies, how to look for new business systems. And I was asked to set up that department. So in 1997, I set up a department called Business Systems and Process Improvement. And we were the business owners responsible for any change that we could have brought into the organization. And it allowed us to go overseas and see some of the things that international banks were doing, copy it, take the best things out of it, and come back and implement it here. And we did. I implemented the first cash processing center in Trinidad and Tobago at 2 locations in Trinidad. And you might be too young to remember, back then in those days, customers used something called a green canvas night safe wallet.
So I don't remember that, but that's strange because I'm fairly certain we're the same age.
So it was a green canvas wallet that you had to have 2 keys to open. The customer would have one, and the bank staff would have one. The treasury supervisor would have one. And all the commercial customers would have to deposit those bags in the night safe.
Oh, okay.
And they would have to collect them back the next day or within that week in order to make more deposits. And it was a very tedious, manual, process-driven system. And I was able to see that G4S Securico in England had something called tamper-evident disposable night safe bags.
Oh, right, yeah.
And we introduced that. And, to introduce the concept of bringing a plastic bag to make your night safe deposits was a huge change, because people would say, how safe is that? Because you could rip the bag open. But the important thing is it was tamper evident. So that once you try to open it, you would know. Yeah. And nothing ever goes unmonitored. So from the company, you have the dual custody by the security companies, and then you have dual custody by the staff. So there was that. We also, I think it was like about 1999, was changing the bank's legacy system from back in those days, green screen, old legacy systems into a client service system.
Yeah,
and
everybody was doing that around 2000 because you had to be 2000 compliant.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we worked on that project, and as a business owner, had to design all the systems and procedures, all the manuals of how staff would use this new system. So that was another, I would say that, the projects that I got to work on along the way were all transformational for the organization in its own way. Yeah. And I keep stressing that was way before the time when you had a lot more structure and specialization. So now you have different departments that would work on electronic, and one that would work on branches, and one that would work on so many different projects. Back in those days, you got to work on the whole basket of them all.
So
other things,
is that the transformation you're most proud of?
The introduction of the core system, I would say no, because after that, because of that, the bank had asked me to change our internal audit department. And that was in 2007. That's when I got my first appointment at the executive level as a general manager in 2007. I think what had happened then is that most financial institutions had something called an inspection department. And it was very compliance based. So they would come in and surprise the branches with a checklist. and they would look to see if you were in compliance with everything and tick or X as the case may be. But the world had moved to risk-based auditing, and it was time for Republic Bank to move to risk-based auditing. And I was sent to Wachovia in Charlotte, North Carolina, for 3 months to work with their chief auditor.
Wachovia, the bank?
Wachovia, the bank. Now,
so I was up there. I worked on their merger when they became
West.
Yeah, well, when they became SunTrust.
SunTrust. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this was.
I think it was. It was a long time ago.
This was 2006, and
Well,
at the time when I was at Wachovia learning internal audit, risk-based internal auditing, Wachovia was merging with you make me forget a bank in California, which carried a lot of subprime mortgages.
Okay. Oh.
And they grew from it.
This is just before 2008.
2008, 2009, the subprime crisis happened.
Yeah.
Wachovia at the time was the third largest bank in the US, and they eventually had to merge with Wells Fargo.
Yes.
But that is the transformation that I'm most proud of. I learned what they're doing across there, and I brought back to Republic Bank and introduced every aspect of risk-based auditing, what the audit programs would look like, the reports, the new types of reporting to the board. And it is still in place today. I mean, it would have been upgraded and changed because that is more than 15 years ago, well, about 15 years ago. But that was a significant legacy to leave.
Wonderful. And what about the culture of the bank now, and what kind of leader are you?
Okay, so the culture of the organization, I would say, is still very progressive. As you would know, the buzzwords and the whole focus today is ESG and DEI and sustainability. And we were the first.
Well, please explain those for those who are listening who don't know what ESG and D&I is.
So environment, social governance, which is all about being sustainable. And one aspect under that is diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think you mentioned it in a previous session, and you are the champion for it. Your net zero climate change or climate impact, right? So
I just came back from actually speaking on ESG in LA and talking about, just what do we see? The SEC is requiring ESG reporting now. So it's a huge deal. And I think it's really important that we start not thinking about it as a buzzword, but something that it's going to happen to all of us. We are all going to have to report on the impact of the work that we're having.
Well, we definitely have to. And for everyone who may not be aware of it, what it is essentially is that with all the industrialization, with all the exploration and the way that we live today, we are affecting our climate. And if we don't do anything about it, our temperatures will increase by, I think it was maybe 1 to 3%.
Yes, right now a new report came out today. So what we're aiming for is to try and limit warming to under 1.5. A new report we're now saying, okay, well, let's limit it to 1.8. But the changes that we're already seeing, we're not even at the level that we're expecting. So I mean, I think it can be overwhelming and scary if you pay attention. The World Meteorological Organization came out with a new report today, and the head of the UN has been giving speeches about it. And we really have to think about how do we do things differently now before the changes are unavoidable and before they're irreversible. But yeah, it's great that institutions like Republic Bank are taking that seriously. And I think the banking sector is leading a lot in terms of not just ESG reporting, but also looking at, I think they've been some of the most progressive players in the transition space. What would you attribute that to? The sort of understanding of risk, or is it something else?
I think it's our commitment to what is important, what is the need for sustainability, and that is one of the major parts. I mean, if we don't do anything now or start to do anything now to change the trajectory that the world is going on, it impacts us. Because with the change in temperature to that extent, you will see more extreme hurricanes, droughts, the impact on human life. And it is the need for responsible citizenship, responsible banking, that we all have a role to play. So Republic Bank did sign on to the UN Principles of Responsible Banking.
Fabulous.
I think it was in 2021.
Yes.
And there are many aspects of that. So, under the different types of sustainable development goals, I think there are about 16 of them. Throughout the whole RFHL group, each subsidiary has selected 3 that would be pertinent to their country. And in Trinidad, we selected the support of the SMEs, which we know are the engine of growth of our country, and one of the means to help us come out of the COVID impact and the whole economic stagnation that we face today. We also are committed to renewable energy and climate. And one of our managers did sit in on a session with you, Racquel, maybe about 2 months ago.
Yes, fabulous. No, Ray is doing amazing stuff. We see him as a regional leader in terms of sustainability and investing in our future.
Yes, so Ray is the one who I guess maybe working with you and others like you leading the change, brought a lot of the ideas to the organization, and we were ready for it, ready to embrace it. The organization is committed. We recently hired our own sustainability officer, Trisha, I think it's Trisha Maraj, and she is going to help us fit in sustainability into every aspect of our operations, whether it is in credit and funding, the bank and our own premises, our own policies among staff, a culture awareness for staff and for customers, the education around it and so forth. So it is really a prime focus, as well as, I wouldn't want to just skip over the part with the SMEs. We are right now working or trying to partner with many different players to see how we could provide support to the SMEs. We are sponsoring the Entrepreneur Business Builder Workshop, which is a group of supporting 150 female entrepreneurs by giving them special training, support, access to help their existing businesses, because they all are existing entrepreneurs. And then after that, the top 20 of them go on to the next level of really hands-on one-on-one coaching with consultants to really help them.
One of the most fabulous coaches I've ever met, Georgina Terry, is working with that group, and I think doing amazing things. So I'm excited about that. But tell me about your leadership style.
Okay, so my leadership style, I would say, has changed and continue changing depending on your role and your own life cycle.
Oh, I'm a very different leader today than I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It changes. You learn new things, you develop, you grow. Thank God.
You're on a different stage in your path. So maybe when you first start off, it's about you trying to establish yourself, work hard, be passionate, be energized, do everything that you could to the best that you could do it as early as you can, because you're really in those early days setting up a reputation for yourself of who you are, how dependable, reliable you are, so that how do you stand out amongst 3,000 other staff for the one opportunity that is going to come up, whether it is the vacancy of a teller or a clerical assistant or a supervisor. What are you doing different from everybody else to stand out and get that opportunity? And then after that, you become a manager and you realize that you have to start a pivot because you can't do it all. It's through your staff that you will get it done. So you start to have to communicate more, communicate differently, engage others. And, it just keeps changing. Today, as a general manager of commercial and retail, I'll say that I am still very driven. I'm very energetic and passionate. And I think I hope that positivity that impacts others and encourages others. It has impacted me when I work with people like Ron Harford, and to feel their energy and their positivity, optimism. I used to leave sessions feeling so energized, wanting to do so much more. And I think you take the best traits of people that you have interacted with,
Mhm.
over your life, and you see, and it actually becomes maybe a part of you if you embrace it. I think that today I'm very accessible. I'm very supportive. I try to be very supportive, and I'm a mentor. And mentoring is two ways, because you mentor your staff with the experience that you have, but most times your mentees are younger than you. So from them, you want feedback.
Yeah.
You want maybe knowledge of IT and how the next generation thinks. So it's a two-way street. My staff would say that I'm strategic and a visionary.
Nice.
And what you see, you try to excite them with it and show them all the possibilities for them as individuals, for the growth that they can get out of it, for the contribution they could make to the organization and their own career path in.
Mhm. Oh, I love that. And I'm here speaking with the strategic visionary, Karen Yip Chuck. But what
trying to be.
No, don't dilute it. It's absolutely true. But what I think was really beautiful about what you were saying, especially as you talk about that leadership journey and how you change over time as you are exposed to new things. And when you first start out in an organization or in your career, you're just trying to get noticed and you're trying to sort of find your way. And so the things that you do then are about you. But then as you become a manager and you become a leader, and as you mature in that leadership, it's almost like, now companies are reporting a lot on their performance, but it's only financial performance. And when you start thinking about things like ESG, it is because it's bigger than the numbers. The numbers are really important, but so is the impact. So is the governance. So is the diversity and inclusion. So are all of those other things. And in your leadership journey, you start realizing that it's bigger than, okay, do I get the number? But how many people do I hurt in the process of getting the number? How many people are burnt out because we've gotten the number? And it's about how do you do what you do well, but sustainably over time? And so I love your passion. I love that. And I think, I think it's been incredible just having this conversation with you, because you can tell how much you love the job and love what you're doing, and the level of detail that you go into when you describe things. I feel the presence of it, and that's so fantastic. I'm certain that there are lots of people who work with you who remember the things that you say and the inspiration that they receive from working with you.
Racquel, and some of those things I have to learn from myself, because I actually go into too much detail sometimes. And I need to step back and just share the highlights of the message that needs to be told. But, one of the things that I tell our two daughters, 18 and 22, and I tell my staff, I always say the first thing is how you present yourself, right? Yes, the first thing that people get from you is the image of who you are. So it's how you dress, how you stand, how you walk. And then after that, you have to have the substance of the knowledge, the material, and so forth. But people feel a positive energy when they interact with somebody. You could feel the passion, you could feel the energy in somebody. And I think it rubs off on people. And, I also say to them that have a vision, know what you want, write it down, stick it on the wall. Stick it on the wall and visualize it happening. It's not going to happen on its own. Yes, you have to work towards it. Yes, you have to sacrifice, but you have to know what you want in order to get there, right? And even if dream big, aim for the stars. Even if you don't hit the star, you will just probably reach right under it, and that's still better than staying on Earth.
So fabulous. I love that. And that I think people sometimes underestimate the power of writing it down. You can have a vision. You can see very clearly what it is that you want to do and what you believe. But if you write it down, you give it power. I know so many people who the difference in the change that they wanted to see is just putting pen to paper. You're not committing it to a physical space. I think that's really, really powerful as well. Karen?
I also believe in positive affirmations. I don't know if you're running out of time, but if we are, I'd just like to end with One of the books that I like is The Wisdom of Florence Scovel Shim. It is all about positive affirmations, and it's how you ask for things out there. You ask for things in a perfect way, so that you're not just asking for X, because maybe you might get X, but maybe to the demise of somebody else or something out there. But if you ask for X in a perfect way, then it will happen that you will get it, or something close to it, or what is meant for you.
What is for you? Oh, please repeat the name of that book.
Oh, The Wisdom of Florence Scovel Shim.
Okay. I absolutely agree with that, and never underestimate the universe's sense of humor either. So you may ask for something. I remember, it's in that movie, Eat, Pray, Love, where the guy said he was praying for an open heart and then he had open heart surgery. Not exactly what he meant, but that's happened to me too, where you pray for something and you get exactly what you asked for, but because you weren't specific or you didn't ask for it in a perfect way, you got the universe's sense of humor. But Karen, thank you so much. It's been a delightful conversation. I love your sort of honesty and straightforwardness, and I know that your daughters are lucky girls.
Thank you, Racquel. This was really truly wonderful, and I hope that we said enough that people out there, the young people out there, listen to it and they get some good takeaways.
Absolutely. I think you can't listen to this and listen to your journey and not realize that hard work and having a vision and, being very deliberate and strategic about your career, but also being really passionate. All of those things are so very important and great lessons to learn in moving your career and getting to the top. Thank you so much. And please, if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to the podcast. You'll hear from phenomenal leaders like Karen and learn more about your own journey in leadership. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Racquel. Have a great evening. Bye.